Welcome to Pod and Deliver, the show that gives you comments, questions, inquiries into the world of teaching. And we're reviewing the week.
Yes.
Jacob, we're reviewing the week that started with Catherine Loaiza. And what are your thoughts about that discussion?
Catherine Loaiza is an old friend of ours, and she has been teaching for, I think she said 14 years or so, maybe about 15. And she is doing something different, as in doing distant learning. And I thought it was a great episode because she is one of our few friends that we know of who is doing it for a second year, distant learning. And she shared about some of her challenges, but she seemed like she was, I'm not sure if you feel the same way, Ruben, but she seemed pretty positive about doing what she was doing. And she was doing it effectively. And she even mentioned in the episode that she would do it next year if they asked her. And so I thought that was, for me, I'm not at that point where I would want to go back online, but again, I'm not doing it this year online. So maybe I would feel differently. But she had some good things that she does regarding having her students sign contracts, or the parents involved. I like the fact that she called one of her students' mother, and because the kid, I guess, was goofing around. And right away, boom, the parent was there, took care of business. And you mentioned something, Ruben, about Catherine, that she, there's a side of her that, that means business when she means business, right? When she could be
It doesn't surprise me that she's an effective teacher, because there's a real assertive side to her.
Sure.
That she is that I brought up. The other thing is what you mentioned, the contract. She used the word family. I really like that word. She said the family signs it, or the family supports it. And there's something about a team working with the student. That's the language of special ed. They use the word team approach in IEPs. And so why not in general ed as well? Why not have us include, hey, can we, I mean, that's a good word. And the parents buy in, the student does, and you might get more results, better results. I like that calling as well. I've done that before years ago, but hey, I think it's effective to say, you know what? I can't deal with this anymore. In the middle of the physical class, I got to call your dad.
I think I've threatened before, and that's enough for sometimes. I have your mom's number. I'm going to call right now. Oh, no. I'm good. Okay. Just double check.
I real briefly, I was reflecting on the fact that she runs marathons and half marathons and does running. And I was thinking about, and that might not be for everybody. I even said it's not for me.
Sure.
But is there something you do that builds character, toughness? We're still remembering Without Limits, and there's so many good quotes in there about what running did for this guy. But is there something you do physically that builds character, that builds toughness? I think is a very useful tool.
Yeah, I think she has that, and there's so many effective teachers. If you talk, I think most of the guests we had, if you talk to them, they do different things. We'll talk about Rowland in a second, but I remember Amy Band, she does greeting cards. There's something that just gets you another part of your brain working, or a physical part of your body working. And I think as educators, it seems like that's part of being an effective educator, maybe having different.
I'm just laughing because I just mentioned running a marathon. You said, well, writing a greeting card.
Well, no, because it's a different creative piece that she's bringing in, and she's doing, that's not teaching. I think the whole point is doing other things that may get your creative juices going and might even help your teaching. Who knows?
That's my thought. Useful, creative. It wasn't what the point I was making, but we're making 2 points, and they're both
physical and creative. Creative point.
They're both useful points. Let's move on to Rowland Santos.
Rowland, and if you see that, hopefully our viewers will watch that video, because Rowland is, and I've shared this before, one of the most positive people, and I think you might agree, Ruben, it's the first time you got to meet him. And just a positive person. I don't know I've ever heard anybody say one negative word about that man. If anything, I've only heard positives. Like he just is always encouraging, and always helping people out. He mentioned a book to us by David Guggen, I think his name is Guggen, and it's like the third person who has mentioned this person to me, David Guggen. So I'm going to be reading that book ASAP. And he talked about he's a fitness guy, I know, and so Rowland is a very fit young man, and he was just sharing how that helps him out, and I know that helps his teaching and his work with around campus, because he has multi hats he wears on campus, but definitely him getting up at 4:30 in the morning and working out, and that just is a big piece to his positivity. I know it. And again, this book, I'm hoping maybe I read it. If it's good, maybe we'll have him come back on and talk about it. But again, it's encouraging to have somebody say, "Hey, I'm getting my body fit." It makes me want to continue doing that. I share. I'm riding my bicycle, but I need to do it more than 3 days a week, just because you just kind of add to it every time. Just add more, and I feel like he's done that. With his 3 black belts, he's just always improved himself in that area. Really encouraging.
It's David Goggins, right? Can't Hurt Me.
Goggins, that's right. Goggins.
Is it Can't Hurt Me?
Yes, I believe so.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, check out that episode. And I was thinking about I think he called himself an instructional coach.
Yeah,
that's like his title, right? And I was thinking that we all really should coach in the classroom. The idea of coaching kind of gives you a different lens. You're encouraging. There's something about a coach, and then it kind of leads into the next discussion, but there's something about a coach. It's a little different than a teacher. You recognize as a coach that some players are not going to reach the level as another player. This player over here is at an elite level, and you meet him or her where they are at, and you give them what they need. That is very different than this other kid. I played Little League with Angel Chavez. My dad was still talking about this kid.
Amazing.
Way years later, as adults, he's like, I've never seen a player like that. And he was 10 years old, 11, and then 12. And I was not on, Ruben Aguilar was not on that level. And I'm glad I had a coach that met me where I was at. So I bring that up because the instructional coach, I also bring up Rowland because another part of the discussion is the health scare that he went to. I think that might lend to his positivity because,
sure.
I mean, God forbid any of us go through a health scare, but it might remind you that time is valuable. We only have limited resources and time, so make the best of it. Well, let's go to the final thing we evaluated, which was Kokoyakyu, the film by Kenneth Ng, documentary.
Well, I will say this: there's a scene in the film, Ruben, that has affected me all week. I've been thinking about it all week, and there's a scene where one of the players is weeping. And one of the coaches, I believe it's from the private school. Yes. And he is weeping with his player. They're weeping the same. And it wasn't like, it was more kind of, I felt it was more because they're talking, he was a senior and he's going to miss him. But he's also knowing that they put a lot of time into their sport, and for it to end, to be over, it was just a lot of emotion. And then he tells this player about his parents. He goes, man, we got to go back out there and thank them. They've really had a big, have had an effect in your life and have done so much for you. We need to thank you and honor them. And so I thought, wow, it's so good to have somebody in your life to remind you of what's really important. And he was saying, hey, baseball's important, of course. And yeah, your senior year's over. It's emotional time, but let's go back and thank those people who got you here. And so, like I said, I think about this week because I thought that's real. And it's great to have people in your life, like a coach, to remind you of those things. It wasn't just baseball. I mean, baseball was a big part of the thing, but other items that are, that are important is family and your future. And the coach realized that. And he knew that this was a big, a step towards that, to becoming a man. So
it was in that documentary, because I have this quote in my mind, and I'm pretty sure it's from the documentary, when he says, I won't weep. I think the coach, maybe the same coach said, I won't weep when we when we lose. I'm going to reserve my weeping for when we win.
Yeah, I said that in the video in
Oh, you
our
said that in the
episode.
video.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you're right. It was in this documentary.
Right. Okay. And then you reinforced it. Okay. That's
Yeah.
what it was. And I really I dig that because it leaves unfinished business.
Yeah.
It like there's this unfinished business thing to not crying, to saying, you know what, we lost. I'm resolved to get business done. So I meant to mention this, and I like what you pointed out. Um, but I also I meant to mention the origami cranes that they created. They created these origami cranes and they sort of paid it forward to the victors who beat them, these teams. And I thought it was such an honoring thing to do, but it also keeps in mind somebody beat me. This builds character, that humility aspect, but it also makes you better because you're focused on the winner. You're saying, what did they do? You're thinking about these cranes. You're paying it forward. You're honoring them. You're speaking their team's name. Thank you for what you did on the field, and it makes you better as a player, probably.
Sure. No, for sure. And that reminds me of we did have a video this week regarding having resolutions. And I've been thinking about that as well, Ruben, because looking at this baseball game.
I was going to skip that one.
Oh, were you?
Okay. Thanks for bringing it up. I thought we were going to be done. Good point. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I kind of brought these two together because really the baseball game and this video that we watched, this documentary, really dealt with really improving yourself and moving yourself forward. And then we had an episode talking about, hey, what are we going to do forward, with this year? And I didn't mention one thing, Ruben. I have 2 classes that are freshmen. So when we're talking about resolutions, I didn't realize that sometimes lately, because I haven't never had freshmen before ever, they're little sometimes immature, and they'll say things that I go, what did you say? And I'm really realizing that I'm being pushed. We had an episode regarding the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Reese, and not to take things so personal, right? And so I really want to do that this year, Ruben, especially with these 2 freshman classes. When they say little silly things, not to take it personal, to remember that. Because I haven't had classes like this before. So I didn't want to bring that. I want to add that on as well, is that I want to be a teacher, especially with these 2 classes, that when these kids get a little, silly, not to take it personal. Come on, and to be there for them. So that's just my little 2 cents.
There's a verse in the Bible that says, where there is much words, there is emptiness. And so I was reflecting on my own resolution of not talking as much. And sometimes, and so this week I reflected on that, and I threw up a question. I threw it out there, and there was silence. And I waited on the silence, and at one point I turned, because I want to speak. I want to cut the silence. And at one point I just said, well, I'll take a seat right here. Because I asked a question to 11th graders that they should have known the answer to. I won't say what it was, but they should have. And I said, oh, you're 11th graders. You should know that this is a very basic question. So I'm going to sit down until I get the answer. And then finally, one of my students piped in. I go, is Jaden going to save the day? I believe he will. He will save you from embarrassment. And then he gave the wrong answer. And I go, Jaden did not save you. You should be embarrassed. And then it got laughs, and it was fine, and it was okay. And we resolved to solve it as a class. People were chiming in. There was something fruitful, but I didn't have to give the answer, which I would have done in the past maybe. And so I really want to keep reflecting as well. Your thing is what, you have something, I have another thing, but it's
just keep betting ourselves. That's what we want to do. That's what this whole channel is for, right? So for us to continue to improve, and I'm excited about our next couple of weeks. We have some books that we're going to be looking at, and just to improve ourselves, right? To learn. So there you go.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for checking it out. Tell us what you think, and thank you for the guests who participated this week with us. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.